You're listening to TJ's One of Us for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANY Podcast. You can also find us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever fight me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky soul still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TJ's One of Us for the Always Next Year Podcast. I'm your host, Shane, and I am joined by our LA connection, Scott. Scott, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. Sitting here with Sunday Night Baseball on in the background, watching another crazy Yankees-Red Sox game.
Sunday night tradition. How, you said 5-hour games for the last several Sunday nights. What do you do after that on Sunday nights, or do you just kind of crash?
I usually sit there for a couple minutes and go, God, I will not do this again next week. Why did I just waste 5 hours? And then I try to turn on some quality HBO programming because, you know, Sunday nights are for HBO.
What do you watch?
I've been watching that crazy show Euphoria lately. It's terrifying and alarming and got way too many dicks in it, but it's a great show. So it's been pretty entertaining thus far. I highly recommend it if people are looking for something to watch, because this is the deadest time of the year sports-wise. So,
what a strange sell to a TV show. Too many dicks in it, but it's strangely good.
It's you can't stop watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I'm going to start watching. So, but at least not on that review. But yeah, maybe we'll see. We'll see. Our 76ers made an additional roster move again, 4 days ago now. Trey Burke, who is, barely an NBA player in my eyes. What are your thoughts on the Trey Burke signing here?
Not much more than what you kind of just said. Like, I don't expect too much from him. I mean, looks like he was on the Knicks for a little bit, was on the Mavs for a little bit. Hasn't done a whole lot as of late, but he did have a lot of potential way back when. He's not
coming out of college.
Yeah.
No, I think he's only like 26, 28.
Yeah. Which was shocking to me. I had thought, Trey Burke, guy's washed up, must be like 30, 32. No, not at all. So I don't know, another strong bench guy, a little bit more of a veteran. Maybe he can, help out in the clubhouse or something a little bit, but
Gotta think not personally, but I liken him to a guy who I'm going to complain about in a later segment, or a later portion of this segment. But to me, I would rather have Tony Wroten. Like, they're the same player, and I'd so much rather the Wroten experience again, personally. I loved Tony Wroten.
Yeah, I like Tony Wroten a lot too. And I think the reason we liked him is because he was homegrown talent. I don't disagree with the comparison. I think they're similar that way. But again, like I think he's just kind of going to be a guard guy coming off the bench, eating up some minutes, probably shooting a little more than he should, because that seems to be his tendency. But maybe we'll get a little resurgence. We'll have like 2 games or something where he scores like 40 points. But it's about
honestly. He definitely has the shooting potential to break out and have a several game stretch where he does kind of carry the second unit and make a big impact, and that's great. I just personally, he's not the guy who I would trust to consistently come off my bench as a guard to come out there and kind of run the offense and run it the way that Brett Brown wants to. So it was a strange signing for me, but it was, again, a vet minimum. It just kind of is what it is. Ideally, I would like him to never see the court in favor of my guy Zhaire, but it is what it is. We'll see how it all rolls. So we're kind of shaking things up on TJ's One of Us, and very rewarding because it came from you, and it's something that I've tried to do in other shows and segments here, and it just hasn't worked out. But we're looking to have more inner segment bit kind of things where we have regular things that our listeners can sit there and tap into. Like, I need to know what Scott and Shane think for this week. Or if the listeners want to write in and give us their own opinions, and they would be able to use hashtags and different things like that. I'll put out an article explaining it all. Tonight we're going to use 4 of them. We do have several more as well. But I am super excited about this because I feel like it's so much more fun than just sitting here. I mean, obviously when the season happens, we'll have some analytical touch on each of these games and things like that. But it's pretty important to show some personality and entertainment as well. So first of the 4 up this week is the Jonathon SImmons Layup of the Week. This is if I don't even remember who the hell the 76ers were playing last year. I just remember that Jonathon SImmons actually had a productive moment on defense, got handsy, knocked the ball away, cruised in for a breakaway, completely uncontested layup because everyone else was 30 feet behind him, and he blew the layup, then came down and blew a defensive assignment, and it was the worst sequence of basketball I've ever seen in my entire life. So this is going to go towards the NBA's Loser of the Week. So Scott, for you, who gets your Jonathon SImmons Layup of the Week award?
So there was an article that came out the other day talking about tampering. So I'm making, and it was very confusing and something that I definitely need to talk about. I'm making just the NBA like front office in general my Loser of the Week, because it came out that they have been talking about tampering, and they said, by the way, there's something in the NBA Constitution that grants Adam Silver the authority to fine and suspend any player who, and I quote, induces, persuades, or attempts to entice any player under contract with another team, player-to-player tampering. And the league has basically done nothing about this but complain that, God, we hate this tampering, it's such a problem. Everyone complains about it, yet they do nothing. So I don't get where the complaint comes from. Either enforce your rule and, charge fines, penalties, suspensions, something, or lean into the skid and just learn how to use it to the best of your abilities and, make it a marketing thing. I'm just very confused by this coming out now. I don't understand any of it.
It's never going to go away.
No, not
it's
at all.
Literally never going to go away. I don't understand the conversation or penalty aspect of it, or what you're saying, enforce the rule. Fuck it. They're going to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. That's a good one. That's significantly better than mine. I'll own that.
Yeah. I mean, still too, like, I got almost angry reading the article, just because. So in my eyes, and I'm far from a marketing genius here, right? But to me, it enables, the kind of shit talking that everyone loves in other sports and stuff. It would allow, fans to interact directly with players and stuff. Like, make it a thing. If LeBron wants Anthony Davis, before he came to LA, if he wants to tweet at him nonstop and like have everyone hop in on it, it's a way to engage fans. It's a way to get the younger audience into the game. I just don't get why. Granted, I'm terrible with social media myself, and I don't fully understand it, but I don't understand why guys like Adam Silver and the NBA front office don't realize how useful it is and use it as a way to get young fans in before we lose them to other sports.
We see it in other sports too. Certainly not from a tampering-esque aspect, but you use the phrase engaging with the fans, and especially with younger fans. And the NBA is such like a media and image game, more so than probably all of the 4 other main sports, that you should capitalize on that. And with baseball, they sit there and they have, I think it's moronic, but I appreciate the effort in doing these things. The Facebook Live games of last year, the YouTube games, streaming games this year, where they will have the broadcasters or players or guys on the bench actually interacting, via those comment lines throughout that game. Now, I think it's ridiculous to do, but in today's society, like that is more interesting than the product that's actually on the field in baseball. And it could be for a dead period in the off season. Holy shit. if you're superstar of superstars of the last decade plus in LeBron James is tweeting at a disgruntled superstar in his own right in New Orleans, that's like must read social media tweeting. Like, that's perfect. Why would you not want that? That's engaging for your game.
It's engaging for your game. You can gain a bunch from ad sales there, and people are reading about basketball, especially right now in the dead time in sports. This is the perfect time for it. Like, if we started some shit talking and, Joel Embiid, like, trying to entice someone to come to the Sixers in a couple of years, like some crazy thing like Giannis coming over here, like, that would be all I'd care about this week. And we'd be talking about it on SportsCenter and First Take and all those shows. Like, it's just a way for basketball to continue to dominate the news. And I would,
sure.
And it's not even something that I want or need to see. I just don't understand why I'm the one sitting here saying that. There's got to be some higher power that handles this, right? Like,
you would assume. Like, I don't know. And again, and not to make it about baseball again, but I still recall in the Clearwater press conference, welcome press conference for Bryce Harper, and I don't remember if it was during the presser or if it was after, I think it was after, and he was talking to Jim Salisbury on the just on the field afterwards in another exclusive interview, and he's talked about how excited he was to join the team and that they can make it this destination city, and that there's this other guy who's a free agent next year or 2 years, whatever Mike Trout was. And it's like, well, that was our talking point for ANYP that week. We're like, how sexy is it going to be to have the two of these hypothetically in the same outfield? Like, not that it was things that we weren't considering to begin with without him saying that, but him saying it fueled it that much more. Obviously, we assumed that Paul George would eventually go to LA. Didn't know it would be the Clippers. We assumed that AD was not going to be in New Orleans. Didn't necessarily know it was going to be LA, but we assumed. But imagine if they were able to sit there and interact with people, with each other freely for one, and then with the fans. I just think I do think it's fun, especially in the off season.
Yeah, and I think it's similar to, growing up, we would go for autographs and stuff like that. That was our interaction with the fans. You go to Eagles training camp and, some lineman who's not even going to make the team comes by and you get him to sign your program. That was big for me as like a 10, 12-year-old kid. Now it's like if, you say something funny on Twitter as a 12 or how old do you have to be to legally use Twitter? Is it 13? Like, so I have to say the kids wait till be 13 to use it. Like, yeah, well, if LeBron tweets at you or something or likes one of your tweets, that might make my life. Are you kidding me? Like, it's just it'd be a good win-win-win for everyone. But
yeah, I would agree. And like I said, for like you said, like for a dead period of the off season, I'm for it. I'm not necessarily a fan of too much interaction during games, whether it be with coaches or players or whatever. I don't even like when they talk to owners and other execs and things like that in press boxes.
We have to call them governors now.
Governors. All right, We'll call them governors.
Well, that's what I think I might have even had a note about that. They had changed the word owner. It's no longer politically correct because this is 2019.
Fucking
and
hate what we
owners imply slavery, which no one was thinking about until they brought it up. But because of that, we have to refer to team owners as governors now in the NBA.
I loathe the entire existence of 2019. This has just been dog shit. I so wish I grew up in like 60s, like whatever. Just fuck. Everyone's so soft and entitled and fuck that. Oh, there's a really good show. Another podcast. Not that again we should promote other people's stuff, but honestly, just fucking listen to it. It is that good because it's fun and it's entertaining. It's called The Art of the Take, and Spike Eskin on there, it had mentioned that we're essentially a society groomed to only like what we like and to be closed-minded on everything else because everything is geared towards the things that we personally choose. And damn it, it's right, man. It is a brutal, brutal time to live because you can't say fucking anything anymore.
Yeah, and yet another reason why the NBA front office is my loser of the week.
A quality pick. Mine is significantly less like entertaining and more like very much so just kind of on the nose here. But it's just because I do feel for Chris Paul. So he had to start his career in a dog shit city, and that is what it is. Got that trade blocked at one point by the NBA, and that is what it is. And he had to play with James Harden, who I think has got, like, he and Russell Westbrook, like we joked about last week, or last time we talked about how Russell Westbrook and like Jimmy Butler would deserve each other because they are such assets, and they're just, I just think that neither one of them are ever going to win playing the style of basketball that they want to play. Not that they couldn't win and that they couldn't sit there and had they scaled back some of their personal need on the court, but if they both play the style of game that they envision themselves playing, you will not win a championship with either of those two on your roster. And this guy he's just got like bad luck in teammates, and like that things didn't work out when he was in LA. And like the 9-10 time All-Star, something like that. I think he's like an all NBA team basically every year, all defensive NBA almost every year, through the early parts of his career anyway. And now he's in fucking Oklahoma City as just like he's not going to be there. He's going to get moved or bought out, and dude just doesn't deserve that, in my opinion. I don't love the guy, but he doesn't deserve it. So my loser of the week is the fact that he was the piece that needed to go in a Russell Westbrook trade, which is just awful.
It is. And I actually, that was my first thought of it all too, was damn, I feel bad for Chris Paul. Nobody wants him. And, he is and
it's not that they don't want him. They don't want his contract.
Yeah. And
that's
the
it.
NBA is it's a business, and that's unfortunately how things work. So he ends up back in Oklahoma City. But the way that I think of it is, him and James Harden, that was a failed experiment. They were not going to win the finals together. That's just how I see it, Yeah, it didn't work out. I thought it was a great fit, and I thought other than the Warriors, they might have had the best chance of anyone last year, and they kind of did prove that. And they almost beat the Warriors, but injuries happen, and they just couldn't pull it off. So for him, this is almost the only way he could ever get a fresh start, because there was no way that he was going to make Houston his team. He needed to go somewhere else. So now,
where the hell is he going to go?
The way that I see it is he has, I would say, like a couple month tryout where they can try to move him somewhere, maybe to, I don't even know where
who can acquire that contract. Is my thing.
Nobody can acquire it right now, but he's playing for some kind of weird trade to get sent to some kind of contender. And I got, honestly, I'm going to have to sit and play with the ESPN trade simulator and see if there's somewhere that the guy can even fit in. Because right now I don't know where, but got to try to think a little positively and hope that he starts playing well again, because he has not played that great the last year or two.
No, it's too many lower body, kind of nagging type of injuries for him. And you can tell he does not have the same explosiveness and quick twitch, everything that kind of made Chris Paul, like made him special for his 6-foot frame. He was able to do things that, those larger frame guys just couldn't. And he doesn't have that explosiveness anymore. And that's, like I said, it's a shame. Overall, I feel bad for Chris Paul. Like this is not how his career should have went.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he did make a lot of money, so he can't be too upset. But I'm sure at the end of the day, he just wants a ring at this point. And I don't think he's going to get it.
I totally agree. I just, mainly because I can't see a logical fit anywhere for him via trade. Like there's, the buyout options are what the buyout options are and things like that and whatever. But there are so few teams right now, and the teams that can't afford it, like they're no better position to win or any closer to a ring than what Oklahoma City is. So it's just, I feel bad for Chris fucking Paul, and poor guy, man, poor guy.
Yeah.
So that is our Jonathon SImmons layup of the week. Again, that's going to be our AMYP's loser of the week. We're going to have one each week for the NBA. Sometimes it'll be players when you're lazy like me. Other times it'll be because of smart article reading and research, and those will undoubtedly be from Scott. Regardless, we will always have almost always have a Jonathon SImmons layup of the week. Going to move into a section now, top 5 players in the NBA, or top 5 players of the week. So I realize that we did not actually discuss how this would probably need to go, so I have a feeling that we've probably done this slightly different right now. But I took this as an approach to go, if the NBA season was to start like right now, as everything is, who do I envision being the top 5 players in the NBA right now? That's all things considered. KD's not going to be on the court. Klay Thompson not going to be on the court, things like that. How did you envision it? Because I'm pretty sure we did this differently.
I did it more from just a making the news perspective. So this is going to be great. We're going to have 2 segments here, basically. So I
like your ways so much better, for the record.
Yeah, we'll see how they both go, and we'll see what kind of feedback we get on them and go from there.
Honestly, I genuinely just wanted to have a 5A and B, and B being Zhaire Smith, if I'm totally honest, which is why I was so excited about the top 5 thing when I had read your text of like, oh, let's just do a top 5. And I'm like, top 5 players in the NBA, Zhaire Smith, number 5. Got it. We're in. 4 slots to fill. All right. So 5 players in the news right now. All right. I'm interested in that. Let's go. We'll work our way from 5 down to 1, and we'll go shot for shot here. So we'll start with you because your category is significantly more entertaining than mine. So your number 5 player of the week in the news. Go for it.
Mine, a little boring. I feel like we talk about this guy quite a bit, but at the same time, he's also never boring. We got Mike Scott coming in. He's running the city of Philadelphia right now. Saw him pop into a wedding the other day and dance there. Showed up at like some track thing where he was racing fans and smoking them, by the way. Like,
oh yeah.
Granted, he is an NBA athlete, so I expect nothing less, but he just smokes this guy down the track. Like, he answers everyone on Twitter with a hilarious one-liner, and
which, by the way,
he's just great. Can't get enough of him.
I have never felt more Caucasian in my life than when reading a tweet from Mike Scott. Never in my life. Like, I have listened to so many sports analysts or radio anchors or anything like that read tweets of different NBA players or and to try to read it in like their tone. And I'm like, man, you sound white. In my own head, I can't even bring myself to read those tweets aloud because I'm like, nope, I will be reminded how clear I truly am. Brutal. But Mike Scott, I fucking love him. Absolutely.
My favorite tweet he had in the last week. Someone, very, very simple question. Someone was like, Mike, why the hell are you up this early? And the answer was just, I got kids.
See, you sounded Caucasian, like on a level that I'm not prepared to sound. Oh my God.
And it was great. And I was sitting at my desk laughing like Tuesday or Wednesday this week. So thank you, Mike Scott. You got me through a rough week.
Oh God. Mike Scott. That's a quality pick. All right, so my number, I already teased the 5B. 5B is Zhaire Smith, which, by the way, he is still number 7 in the NBA. In all actuality, I just needed to find a way to talk about him again.
In due time, he'll be up to 5.
It'll happen. He's the future 7th best player in the NBA because I'm having T-shirts made that state that, so it must be true. But no, in all reality, I went with Giannis. So I respect his skill set and I respect who and what he is on the court, and I do recognize him as a top 5 player. However, I don't see anyone winning with Giannis because he still can't fucking shoot. He's just like Ben Simmons, just slightly more advanced in that way. And it's not to say it's a bad thing, but Giannis to me is a player who he size-wise, he's a freak, and that's about it. Like, other than that, I'm not overly excited to ever talk about Giannis, but I recognize his skill and the fact that he is a very, very good basketball player because of his fucking size. So number 5 in the NBA for me, in a significantly less entertaining category, is Giannis.
Okay, well, that parlays perfectly into my number 4 pick of the week, and realistically, I just kind of had 5 guys mismatched here, but Giannis was one of them for me because he's had a pretty big last couple of weeks. One of the things that I've liked most that happened for him was he came out and openly said, I would love to stay in Milwaukee. I do not want to leave. And hey, do we believe
I respect.
I kind of do. Seems to be a pretty genuine guy. He loves the city of Milwaukee. He loves everything they've done for him. They make him feel welcome. On top of that, he just signed a giant Nike deal and has his first shoe come out. And it's a pretty sweet looking shoe. I'm a bit of a sneakerhead myself, and I typically shy away from getting basketball shoes because I work in an office where I have to wear a collared shirt every day, and a 28-year-old man should probably not be wearing basketball shoes to work, but I do it sometimes. So yeah, maybe I'll see myself picking up a pair of those. But Giannis has had a big last couple of weeks.
That's an underwhelming number 4. I think it's just because nothing about Giannis excites me whatsoever, including shoes, which, by the way, send me a link. I don't know what the hell they look like. I'm not huge into shoes, but I do like to see every once in a while the creativity of players and what they put out there. Which, by the way, players have to say this basically, even in smaller market towns such as Milwaukee, of like, oh, I intend to finish my career, or this is where I want to be long term, or whatever. Like, no one's going to come in here and be like, this is definitely a 1-year trip for me, and then I'd like to never return. Like, that's definitely not going to happen. But he's so boring to me. I genuinely believe Milwaukee's probably fine for him. Like, I could totally see him just being like, yeah, fuck it. 12 years later, I'm still in freaking Milwaukee. Also still not winning a championship because Chris Middleton's my second best player. And that's just never going to happen.
See that. Do watch there's this show. It was on ESPN. It was the short, 30-40 minute documentary that came out about Giannis. And it proves a little bit that he is kind of like a boring younger guy. But his agent does a lot of talking on it as well. And he pretty much just says, how it was hard for Giannis to get to the NBA and to get his visa and stuff. His family couldn't get over here. His brother had a hard time getting here. So he's had a bit more of a journey, and it adds some personality to him and makes the story a little more interesting. But I do agree. Other than that, Giannis kind of tends to stay out of the news, except for this week.
Yeah. I also dig the fact that he said that he envisioned his brother having a better basketball career than him, which is crazy to think, honestly. But he does strike me when it all comes down. Like, boring is a word, yes, but he does strike me as oddly humble in an era of basketball where I feel like that's not really a word that's thrown around. So I don't know. I feel like I'm going to talk myself into not disliking Giannis if we keep talking about him. So I'm going to move on to my fourth here. I am, for similar reasons as Giannis, number 4, I totally respect him as an MVP candidate every time he steps on the floor, James Harden, but you will never fucking win anything with that clown on your team and on your roster. His 55 shots a night with his 19 step back moves, and now that he has Russell Westbrook with him, I don't know that I've ever feared 2 legitimate stars less in my life than I fear the 2 of them together. I just think that's going to be a fucking train wreck.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out. And I think it's basically just Daryl Morey throwing his hat up in the air, just being like, all right, this is my last shot. I'm going to get fired if this doesn't work. But I wasn't going to win with the team I had before, so I might as well take a shot with Russell Westbrook. And
went swinging.
Yeah, I mean, it was the end of NBA free agency. There wasn't a whole lot that they could have done, and he seemed to be the best option. I mean, I don't. I keep playing back and forth whether I think they're going to be better, worse, or the same, and I don't think they're going to really change much. Weirdly, I think they're going to be very similar.
I can't see it happening. There's so much ego within the 2 of those players, and it's not to say that there isn't an ego with Chris Paul. There was and is, but I do at the end of the day believe that Chris Paul's main priority and focus was to run an offense and to be a point guard. If he needed to knock down jump shots, he did. If he needed to be a facilitator, it's what he was. If he needed to create contact and get into the lane, he had the slipperiness to be able to do it, with his size. The 2 of Harden and Westbrook right now are both so severely type A, ball dominant, me guys. And like they're going to fill stat sheets. They're going to put up crazy numbers. And I think that they will put up crazy numbers this year together as well. I just don't think that those numbers will at all translate into a, top 4 team over there in the West. Like I just don't see that happening. I don't fear them winning basketball games and meaningful games together. I just think that so many games are won in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, and that's kind of really it. And when that happens, I feel like they're like one poor decision away on court from a fist fight between the two of them and saying, no, I have the ball for the remainder of the 4.5 minutes that this game has. I just don't trust the two of them together at all.
What kind of stats do you think they're both ending up with this year?
I do think Harden will probably push like 28, 29. I think that he's, because of the kind of stats and ball control, and there is no actual control to Westbrook's game. Like he's just 150 miles an hour all the time. And I feel like that's going to make James Harden have that much quicker of a trigger with the basketball. So I actually feel like he's probably going to shoot more this year than he had in previous years. And that's always, going to maintain that 28, 29 points a night. I see him probably, 5 assists, 8 boards maybe. But Westbrook, I think will probably take a hit in the points department. But I think that at least for the first half of the year, he is going to try desperately to assume that passer's role. And I actually think he's going to lead the league in assists early on because James Harden is going to have that quick shot trigger now, making a stance that it's still his team out there in Houston. So, but I could see him averaging 20, 21 points and, like I said, 12 and a half assists, and then 9, 10 boards a night, closing in on that triple-double stat again. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think I agree with you for Russell Westbrook. I think he's weirdly still going to average a triple-double, which is the craziest thing in sports that no one cares about anymore because he's done it twice in a row. It's an unbelievable accomplishment, and I don't think we'll see anyone else in our lifetime really do something like that. But I think he's going to touch in on it again. I think James Harden's actually going to score more than last year for a lot of the reasons you kind of said. That I think Westbrook's going to be distributing the ball well to him. I think he's going to have a quicker trigger. And if you remember last year, there was a point where he was just scoring 40 points a night, just every single night.
That was disgusting.
It was the most impressive thing I've ever seen in basketball. Like I would consistently, make joking like just word bets, like talking shit with friends, and be like, "Oh, I bet Harden scores 42 tonight." And he'd be like, "Dude, he scored 40 the last 4 nights." I'd be like, "Yeah, I know, but he's gonna score 42 tonight." Comes out, scores 45. Like just without fail, he was doing it every single night, and I think he's weirdly getting better almost as a player offensively. So I think he's gonna play pretty well. I just think the team around them is not gonna take to the two of them. So I think that's gonna be the issue.
Yeah, for sure. I don't, and they're another team that I sit there and say I don't think they have an actual identity, like ever. I don't think that for 1 minute on that court they're going to have an identity outside of perhaps like the last, like I said, 30 seconds of a one possession left in the game. I feel like they're going to have a drawn up identity, but I don't know if it's going to go over well with the guy who isn't going to have that shot because they're both so accustomed to having it. So it'll. I do think that the Rockets will be a really interesting team to follow, but for a team that has 2 players such as Harden and Westbrook, like, damn, I don't fear them one bit, and I don't think the rest of the NBA should either. So let's go down to your third here.
All right, so mine was who have I said thus far? Mike Scott.
Mike Scott was first, and Giannis was Mike Scott was fifth. Giannis was fourth. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So not to beat this conversation any further into the ground, but I don't want to pick it up again. I had Russell Westbrook on here, and not really for any of the reasons that we'd brought up about his playing, more so because he demanded a trade and got that exact trade in about a week. I think what Daryl Morey did there is one of the more impressive things a GM can ever do, to pull that off. So There was a quote that came out too where James Harden had yelled at Daryl Morey for trying to make trades happen and trying to make the Russell Westbrook thing happen. And he came back and said, "Your trade took me 6 months, so relax." I think a lot of times we overlook how hard it is to get superstars moved and quickly and for both sides to win. And that happened extremely fast. Good job for pulling that off, Daryl Morey. And I think Russell Westbrook is pretty happy with this one. So yeah, Russell Westbrook, number 3.
I feel like it's not necessarily Russell Westbrook, but rather the GMs that made this happen. But I accept it regardless, and he should be happy. Like there's no question with after acquiring Paul George and then shipping him out after. Which, by the way, did you listen to Paul? I mean, I assume you did. Paul George's his interview where he sat there and said, "When I signed my 4-year contract, this was a conversation we had that if this doesn't work, we understand we're blowing this up in a year." Like, what the fuck? How bizarre. Why would you say that out loud? It's just
You
dumb.
couldn't say that out loud. Yeah.
That was so stupid. But again, putting that out there out loud, it almost becomes like a hostile and toxic environment for Westbrook. And it's going to be one of those like, yes, you're going to average 30 points a night and you're triple double again, but you're going to win 35 games. Like, you're not impressing anyone at this point, and certainly not impressing yourself. So yeah, sure. In theory, going to Houston in a fun town and a big market city, and an NBA city that continues to kind of cycle itself through periods of time where they're very relevant and then not. But he's got to be more excited there than he was in Oklahoma City, so I'll give you that. My third was, and again, remembering listeners that I did the wrong thing here and misread everything, but my third is the third best player in the NBA if it were to start today, and that is LeBron James. This one kind of hurt me to put in here. I had LeBron James out of my top 5, and then I had to sit there and be honest with myself and be like, look, you have acquired some really legitimate talent and depth for that roster, and he basically took last year off, like the entire second half of last year, and probably honestly even before that, where he didn't have to do shit, and he certainly, like I said, didn't play the last month and a half of the season or whatever it was. So I do think that a refreshed LeBron James, and I can't remember which show it was on. I don't know if it was on First Take or what, but they were sitting there saying that LeBron James is going to to wreak havoc on the entire league again, and remind everyone that he is truly the number one player in basketball. And I guess they had asked GMs who the number one player in basketball was, and not one GM. I don't know how true it is, but this is on, I think it was First Take. I can't even recall right now. And no one had picked LeBron James, and they were like astounded by this. And I was like, well, fuck it, I wouldn't pick LeBron James either. And, but looking at everything, looking at LA as a whole, looking at the fact that they're now going to be looked at as probably the, little sister in LA, that's going to just incentivize, truly the best player in our time to kind of take it to another level. So I kept him in the top 5, and I just kept moving him down on my list. He started at 5, and I ended with him at 3. And I think that's a fair spot for him.
I agree. I think last year was a strange year for LeBron because starting the year out, no one really gave him any credit because we were all so just pissed off that he was in LA, I think. It's just a real way it was a heel move kind of, and people just didn't take to it. But he did still have like a decent year when he wanted to play. I think they were 4th in the West for a while until he decided that he wanted Anthony Davis, and then they just blew everything up locker room wise. And then there was a ton of injuries, and then he just gave up and sat out the end of the year. So I think he still has it in him to be, the best player in the NBA. I agree with the pick, but I also agree in the sense that I don't like saying it because I'm not on Team LeBron right now.
I've never been on Team LeBron outside of the very short window there where I was like everyone else in Philadelphia, setting my differences of opinion aside on him, was desperately hoping he chose the 76ers last offseason. But outside of that, like I've always been a Kobe guy. So, and I feel like, I don't know, have we ever talked about this? I don't know that we ever have. Like, you grew up, well, both of us. I mean, we grew up like the very tail end of Jordan, and then the Kobe kind of take over, and then LeBron. Who do you gravitate towards most?
Jordan,
Or someone
weirdly
else?
enough. I don't like Kobe at all.
Damn.
It's probably
Why?
the
2001 finals.
when he was. No, I don't even have a problem with that. Although I do have this pretty sweet step over T-shirt that I'll show you when I go home.
Nice.
It's Allen Iverson stepping over to Ron Lue, and I wear it to every Lakers game, and no Lakers fan gets it, which is how I know they're not real fans.
No one in LA is a
but
real fan.
no, they're not, and maybe once a year, and I probably wear this T-shirt a couple times a month at this point. It's awesome, but maybe once a year someone will point it out and go, "Oh, that's clever. Fuck you, man. You shouldn't wear that here." So I I strive for that. But I don't like Kobe because he's from Lower Merion and he just didn't like the city of Philadelphia and didn't want to come here ever. It's a bit petty to hold that grudge over someone. I think he said that when he was 18. But I just don't like that kind of scorn towards our city. I like Jordan. I like the competitiveness. I like Jordan Brand stuff a lot. I like him as a businessman. I've watched a lot of tape on Jordan as well, so I like that. Plus, I have a pretty sweet Jordan jersey, which we kind of touched base on a little bit in our last podcast.
The junior high jersey.
Yeah. And if you asked me this question maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago, I would have said LeBron, no doubt. It's more just the way that he's behaved in the last couple of years confuses me, and I just can't support that.
It's weird. There's always the argument about how dramatically things have changed because of social media and media of all sorts. I don't know how that would have affected a guy, truly a marketing genius and a branding genius such as Jordan. I don't know how much it would have affected him. Like maybe people would not have gravitated towards him as much as he seems to be so almost universally loved when talking about, the best who have ever done it in the NBA. For me, I mean, like I said, we grew up at the very tail end of Jordan. So for us, it was still crazy to see a guy who was, in 2003, I think was his last year, 2004, something like that. With those last few years with the Wizards and still randomly go out there and put up, 30 points a night. And I was like, Jesus, like he's kind of the only guy in the court right now that means anything in Washington. And he's doing this still. So I always had a massive amount of respect for him. I also, being a baseball guy, I love the fact that he tried being a two-sport guy, despite the fact that it did not work. Still respected the hell out of it. But for me, it was always Kobe, then Mike. And I fucking hate LeBron. I've always thought he was a bitch. So, but certainly heightened from bitterness and pettiness of not choosing Philadelphia this past off season. But still, he's an asshat. Not a fan.
It is a little interesting, too. I remember, I think, when I was in 7th grade, I think that was about when LeBron was a junior in high school or sophomore, maybe a senior even, and he was getting ready to be drafted, and there was all the hype around him. And I remember reading like a biography behind LeBron, so I was all in on the story right from the get-go. And it is kind of cool to say that, he's our generation's talent, like the best player that we got to see all the way through. Because even with Kobe, I was a little not too young to see it all. I mean, I basically watched the entire tenure of Kobe's career, but I just didn't have the respect for basketball when I was that little to understand it all. So,
but yet you had the respect for Mike. Weird as hell, man. I respect it, but fair enough.
I'm a confusing man, Shane. What can I say?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue it. Let's roll to your second most impactful player in sports media right now.
What it do, baby? It's Kawhi Leonard.
Man,
See, I'm trying to really,
we are
trying to just sound
losing
very white.
credibility amongst a particular crowd in this moment.
If anyone thought that I was cool for a split second there, I've definitely ruined that in this episode. But so Kawhi Leonard's up here, and he would be my number one guy in the NBA right now if it weren't for the next guy, and I'll tease that now a little bit. But
because he came out and just openly admitted that he's been just tampering with Paul George for the last 2 years. There was an interview that came out together, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been working on this for a while." Kawhi Leonard is a robot, has no personality, but he's a criminal mastermind and has been doing this. Like, it's unbelievably bold for him to say that, and it's literally him being like, "Your move, NBA. What are you gonna do to me? I'm the best player in the NBA right now," and they're gonna do nothing. So good for him for doing that and having that interview, showing a little personality for once. Plus, also, this is a big positive thing for me here. He showed up at a Padres game the other day. He has a house in San Diego in La Jolla. I believe he bought it, a couple years ago, and we all thought he was first going to go to the Clippers or Lakers. But he chose the Padres as his California baseball team, which is a wild card move, but I love it. We don't need any more fake Dodgers fans or Angels fans or anything. Might as well go hang out with the Padres, who are not doing anything too special right now, but the San Diego ballpark, Petco Park, is awesome. I'm a huge fan of it. Good job for aligning yourself with the Padres, Kawhi Leonard. Well done in my book.
So weird. Ballmer's reaction makes Kawhi a legitimate just superstar, and so that guy. First of all, if you want to feel once again cool, as 30 seconds ago you were just totally not, you could just watch the Ballmer interview, or not interview, is just welcome. He had to have been so drunk, right?
I have Ballmer as an honorable mention here. He's not a player, so I can't name him officially.
Right.
But it was awesome what he did. He came out. He's more excited than anyone in America right now. He is pumped about the Clippers. He is pumped about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
Two personalities on stage. Holy shit. Pretty cool. Pretty fucking cool. Which I can do that because I look and sound just like him, fat and white. But then to sit there and have Kawhi Leonard, who's just looking like, fuck me. I'm here for the next 3 years.
It was one of the best pieces of media that's come out of the NBA in a while. I urge anyone who has not seen that to start your day on Monday with it. Don't watch it right now. Go in Monday morning, grab your cup of coffee, and watch Steve Ballmer, and you will be not disappointed.
It has to be a beautiful way to start your day, and I'm going to give you my comparison to that right now was Kramer, who couldn't taste his peaches because he had whatever go on with his mouth in that episode, and they thought that he was special needs. Because if you watch the two of them, like him just freaking out in the chair, Ballmer freaking out in the chair with his hands all curled and his tongue wagging out like a loon, and then you watch Kramer, oh yeah, long time, live long, live alone, long time. They're the same fucking person. It is bizarre. It is absolute brilliance. And I respect the hell out of Ballmer for his geekiness right now. And I feel so much better about myself after watching it. So yeah, start your week with that. That's a quality take too. My second one, we won't talk very much on it, is I took Steph Curry. I took Steph Curry because I believe that there is so much, stating the Warriors dynasty is over. Obviously KD leaves. Clay is going to be out for over half the year. They've acquired D'Angelo Russell to trade him in 3 months. There's this like depth identity that's no longer there, and it's so hard to maintain those dynasties. And there's so much like negative energy surrounding literally one of the best NBA dynasties to have ever occurred. And I just think that if Curry can remain healthy for 82 games and however many games he plays, I just think he is such a deadly, deadly player in today's style of NBA that more so than anyone on this list, except for my number one, which is Kawhi, he can carry a team on his own to a championship. I genuinely believe that with him. So for me, Steph Curry is number 2.
I agree. I think Steph Curry is primed to have a huge year.
Like a fuck you kind of year.
Exactly. We forget how good he is a lot. Or last year, I think we all forgot how good he was a lot because of Kevin Durant's presence. And that even speaks more to how good Steph Curry was because he, it still is his Warriors team. They haven't retired his number yet. Why haven't they done that? but he took a little step back, but would still come out and have 40-point games when they needed him to, and he would hit huge threes. And he is a smaller dude that's always beaten up, but he fights through it pretty hard. I think Steph Curry's gonna have a huge year, so good pick.
Yeah, definitely mine. And we've talked enough about the Kawhi thing, so I'll say mine is Kawhi for obvious reason, without getting too heavy into that debate. So let's roll to your number one player of the week in terms of media purpose.
All right, so mine was, and this is kind of an homage to him as a player by giving him this spot, is Vince Carter. So Vince Carter came out and announced that this will be his last year in the NBA. It will be
Do you believe him, by the way?
Second year in the NBA. I don't believe it's going to be his last, to be honest, no. Unless he does one of those giant media tours, then yeah, I think you kind of have to make it your last, because that's incredibly corny to go on the giant media tour, make a bunch of money from it, get a bunch of gifts, and then come back.
That's why I think that's like, Dwayne Wade's got to be regretting that at this point.
Oh, he
got his boy back. Jimmy there. Yeah.
He sold fucking T-shirts for his last year. Oh my God, it was unbelievable what he did, and I even like Dwayne Wade too. But I checked the T-shirts out. I almost bought one, and then I sat back and was like, no, you know what? Like, this is ridiculous. You can't profit off of your last year in the NBA. That's so stupid.
It's brilliant. Let's be serious.
It is, and I'm just salty because I can't profit off of stuff like that. And he almost got me to buy a T-shirt. But I mean, Vince Carter has had an incredible career. He still is playing surprisingly well for a dude who is in his 22nd year in the NBA, or going into his 22nd year in the NBA. He's acknowledged, that he's pretty much done. We don't see players get to their late 30s like he is, or early 40s.
He's in his 40s, yeah.
And yes, I think 42, 43, somewhere like that. He is, just been electric, or he was electric to start his career. I mean, if you can think the most famous thing about Vince Carter was that dunk contest, that was 2000 when he was throwing through the legs dunks, putting his elbow in the rim. I mean, that was 19 years ago. That's unbelievable how long he's been playing, and just keeping up in the league. And it's a young man's game now, so like I don't know how he keeps doing it. Props to you, Vince Carter. Maybe I'll even fuck around and buy one of your farewell T-shirts if you do put them out, and hang them on my wall. It's just gonna
be a hanging elbow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fan of Vince there. Yeah, man. I hope he gets himself a ring.
Me too.
He's again, quality. 22 years in the league, no joke for one. And the fact, and you mentioned it, it's a vastly different NBA than what it was. Like, it's crazy to sit there and think, like, if you could have taken Vince Carter from years like 1 through 5 of him, or like 2 through 6, I think it's probably a little more accurate there, 2 through 6 Vince Carter, like, you could have supplanted that into almost any era of basketball. I think that's one of like the really interesting things about him. And there's a handful of players like it. He would have been an electric player every single era of basketball. Like, despite the flash, despite, the insane athleticism, there was just so much smart, just like basketball IQ on the court and ways to make his teammates better. I don't know. He's been a hell of a career to follow. That is one jersey. I don't wear basketball jerseys. We discussed this before. I did not own very many basketball jerseys. I did own my share of Kobe jerseys. But Vince Carter was the one non-Sixers or Kobe jersey that I had a Mike jersey too, I'm pretty sure, although I can't remember. But yeah, the Vince Carter jersey was definitely one that was fun. So good.
I mean, he brought basketball back to Toronto as well. I mean, nobody cared about it up there, and he made it a bigger thing. So he had a big impact on the game, and it's not someone that we're going to soon forget. I hope he finds himself some kind of deal at ESPN or some broadcasting thing. I think he'll be pretty good talking basketball moving forward. So
I think so too. So he was already calling summer league games, which is great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so my roommate had come home one day and he's like, "Is that Vince Carter calling that game?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah, 100%. And he is so good and so fun. And so I talk about it with this guy, Ty Dobbert of the Painted Lines. He has a serious issue with baseball announcers who were former players in most part, who criticize the game for the way it's being played today and the kind of new wave of baseball, and saying, like, if you're the one who's selling us this game as a commentator, an analyst, or what have you, you kind of have a responsibility to sit there and be on the pulse of what it is today, and like not negatively, speak on the product. Like, if it's a bad game, it's a bad game, but don't hate and just completely criticize what this wave of baseball is, because it's different from what you did. Vince Carter, to me, is the guy who's going to be supplanted into one of those, into the booth for any of the NBA games, and he's just going to fucking kill it and be completely on the pulse of things and never change. He's so smart. He's an incredible basketball mind. So yeah, he'll have a hell of a career after this if he wants it. So those are our top 5 going forward. We will have all of the top 5 players of the week will be in terms of media, not where they stand and when games are not actually being played. I don't know why I thought anything different.
I tell you what, though, I think we should a couple times a year just visit.
Visit
the top 5 players in the NBA. I think it's a good practice to get into, because 5 players is not a lot of players, and there are a lot of good people in the NBA. So
Zhaire Smith for one.
Yeah, exactly. Will he be 5? Will he be 2? We don't really know. But
taking Curry's place. We could flip him and LeBron James right now. I mean, they're basically the same player. I mean, no big deal.
Have mustaches.
It's so we will revisit
what a transition
that. Tell me about it. We will definitely revisit the top 5s here, but as you alluded to, Scott, Zhaire Stache is the next one that we have on for you here. Zhaire Stache, handsome NBAer of the week. So we all know how attractive our Philadelphia 76ers are. We talk about it in a very strange amount here on AMYP, and Zhaire Smith kind of leads that one for us, as he is a truly handsome man. If you had to choose one NBA player that you think, or that we think, or that you've heard of, that we think could rival the attractive level of one Zhaire Smith, who are you putting up? And just let me sit here and tell you how wrong you are now. But start.
Oh, I know I'm going to be wrong as I wrote this down. I knew it was a wrong one. But have you seen the pictures that came out of Russell Westbrook in his Houston
with the
Rockets
cornrows
for the first time, with the worst looking cornrows of all time?
It's absurd.
And a terrible headband and awful shoes. Just all around looking terrible. So I took this as a tongue-in-cheek thing. Russell Westbrook is my handsome NBA player of the week, and good God, Russell, change everything about your look right now. You look terrible. I don't think he can even grow the mustache that we're joking about here, and that's kind of sad. But yeah, stick to playing basketball and stop worry a little bit more about your look. Hire a publicist. Do something, Russell Westbrook. You look terrible right now.
So I got a buddy who sits here, and he's just moved to Florida, and he's getting his his kind of that second wind on life, and I'm super proud of him. But one thing that I do desperately miss when I used to work with him was he was an IMDb page guy. So anytime that we would sit there and we'd watch movies together or do whatever, he'd be like, all right, let me check on IMDb here, and he'd find these different people, and naturally we like beautiful women, and Zhaire Smith. We would go on these pages, and he would find, and he'd be like, man, all I need to do in life, clearly, is to be the person who chooses the photo that would be your IMDb cover photo, because there are beautiful people in this world who look pretty fucking god awful in their IMDb page. Like, I would never choose an IMDb page selection for half of my like actual celebrity crushes out there, because they just choose the worst pictures ever. So I feel as though I could then, my buddy is about to quit his job, which I'm very proud of him for. I feel as though I could just, drop him Russell Westbrook's number and just be like, you should give this guy a shout, because he looks ridiculous. He looks like a reptile. Like I can't even explain it. It's so weird. He is not a handsome man, and I'm gonna have to vote right now. He is not more handsome than our Zhaire Smith. I'm
No,
sorry,
he
man.
is not. Russell Westbrook, I could sit here and talk for a while about how he's just not a good-looking guy. The sneakers he puts out have never been good-looking. I don't get how he's like the one star in the NBA too that just has no good. Trying to think of a word that's gonna make me sound cooler than saying no drip or something like that. Like, but I can't. He just has none of it. Like, he shows up wearing the weirdest shit all the time, press conferences, games.
Yeah, he looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just
All
what
the
is he
time.
doing?
He's Cam Newton of the NBA. That's what he is.
That's a great comparison. Yeah, except Cam Newton, handsome man.
Also looks like a reptile. Like, doesn't. I can't agree there. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to rule again. Zhaire Smith is still more handsome. So I also went semi tongue in cheek here, and I'm gonna go back to rookie year of Gordon Hayward. Before he realized that you can look like a hipster and make my girlfriend think you're attractive, and he was the example of that, and I loathe her for it every day. So I'm going to take the Butler / year one version of Gordon Hayward. Is he, give me a ruling here, is that version of him more attractive than Zhaire Smith?
I have one very important question here, just so I don't have to pull photos up. That's before he got the great haircut, right?
That's correct. It's before the hair and looks like he got eyebrows done and like fake cheekbones or something. Looks like a totally different human.
Not more handsome than Zhaire Smith back then.
You're damn right.
Absolutely not.
Wait a minute, back then. All right, so let's revisit this now, or bring this in question now. The version that he is now, with the hair that looks like it's fake, it's so perfect. Is he more handsome right now than Zhaire Smith?
I gotta say yes. The guy's got one of the best haircuts in basketball. It's great.
Wow, man. All right, so we're interviewing for new co-hosts at AMYP for TJ's One of Us. I feel as though that's the wrong answer, and the fact that you agree with Stephanie, I have a serious problem with the both of you. I almost picked Raul Neto, specifically because I've watched him, but I don't know that it ever registered in my brain. He was just he's a guy. He's a reserve player, and we acquire him, and there comes up his picture, and I'm like, we just qualifications, big wingspan or long wingspan, and got to be handsome. Raul Neto is a handsome man as well, but not handsome or more handsome than our 7th best player in the NBA, Zhaire Smith. So we're going to end this one mercifully, since Scott over here thinks that the new hipster version of Gordon Hayward, to which no one believes is actually what he looks or sounds like in real life. I'm taking that stance. He's been, I don't know, cloned or whatever, twin. That can't be. You can't be that unattractive for so long and nerdy and suddenly look like that. It's just not fair.
It literally happened overnight. It's fucking crazy.
It's absurd. He's not the same person, and that's why I'm convinced that he cannot receive the award over our Zhaire Smith. So we will end this one with why do we actually hate this guy again? So we have had over the years, whether it be 76ers players, whether it be NBA players who have come in and either torched the Sixers or who have done nothing against the Sixers. We always have those guys who hate is the immediate word that registers with us. I have a unique one, and I'll get to mine in a moment. So Scott, why don't you give us your why do you hate this guy again?
So I think this is one of the more Philadelphia things we can do, actually, because we have so many people that we hate that sometimes we forget why we hate these guys, right? That was the spirit. That's the spirit of the segment in my mind. And I just have this innate hate for Matt Geiger. It's been a very long time. I cannot let it go. I don't really know why, because I was pretty young in, I think, 2000, 2001. I was 10 or 11 years old. So I had really no full reason to hate this guy. I barely understood basketball. So I had to do some research and understand why I do hate Matt Geiger. Number one.
First of all, that's an amazing statement right now. That was brilliant. I hate this guy so much I had to remind myself and do research to validate my hate.
Yeah, Exactly. I suggest all Philadelphia sports fans, go back and reread certain stories why we hate certain people. Matt Geiger being one of them. So, number one, from a very privileged background, that's something that you just don't like seeing. Tall, handsome white guy, and handsome is probably not the right word for it, but he's tall, so girls probably like him.
No, that's impossible. He was not a handsome human.
No,
he was the
really.
white Tyrone Hill.
He's got the weird shaved head, but the reason he had a shaved head is because his brother had cancer in college, so in solidarity with his brother, he shaved his head. So don't want to give you guys any reason.
That doesn't bode well.
Definitely doesn't bode well at all. But he just kind of underachieved when he went to Georgia Tech in college, and then when he was drafted in the NBA, didn't really play that well. Except the Sixers signed him for a 4-year, $47 million contract. Part of that contract, he had a $1.2 million trade kicker, similar to the one that Anthony Davis had for $4 million that we all know so much about. And Matt Geiger, that son of a bitch, refused to waive it. So we could not get rid of him. We were stuck with him. The lone bright thing that came out of this, and this is where I got a little confused when I was reading my research. I almost immediately called you and was like, wait, I'm back in on Matt Geiger. I kind of like this guy now. But we were trying to trade Allen Iverson away in 1999 and 2000, and we couldn't do it because Matt Geiger had to be part of the deal. We had to change money around, and because of that, Allen Iverson did not go to the Pistons. He stayed on the Sixers, and we went to the 2001 finals with zero help from Matt Geiger at all. Literally all we got out of him was the one iconic photo of him holding the back of Iverson's head. That makes Iverson look like a child because Matt Geiger is a fucking gigantic human being. That's the only good thing we got out of it. He's just – Shrek is a good thing to call him. Except pale, not green. So that was pretty much all you can say was positive about him. Aside from that, he just didn't play very much. He averaged 9.9 points during his tenure as a Sixer. Just a horrific stat for someone who made so much money back then. On top of that, too, once the guy retired, and I have looked everywhere to find out what he's doing right now, I think he dropped off the face of the earth and just sitting back counting his money, laughing at people like me that are still so angry at him. But he basically took all of his NBA money and built a crazy mansion in Florida that was so massive, the property taxes on it were $177,000 a year. He had a fucking Shark Tank in the house, 40 TVs, 18 of which had Xboxes. He had cattle on the 28-acre property. He had a mini horse, and then there were 8 bathrooms in the house itself. It was ridiculous. He sold it for $8 million, even though he asked for $22 million, because the whole housing crisis thing. So fuck you, Matt Geiger. I can't believe that you were sitting back counting your money, and I'm still mad at you. Just because you stole money from our city, you provided us with nothing, and I just don't like Matt Geiger still. And 12-year-old Scott or 10-year-old Scott that was initially angry at him, I'm keeping that thought alive.
First of all, I respect the amount of research you just did on Matt Geiger and where he is today and reasons to support your hatred for him. That is impressive.
I had a very slow day in work on Friday, so I just spent probably a good 2 hours researching Matt Geiger. So he didn't make it easy for me, that son of a bitch.
That's another goddamn reason to hate him. So I selected Lou Williams for why do we hate, or why do I hate you again? So and it's weird. I hate him for all the things that I mentioned earlier, the Tony Roten kind of thing, and Trey Burke-ish kind of connection here. When the 76ers drafted him I'm pretty sure he was like the last high school player drafted before that rule changed. But 76ers took him like 45th, 46th overall in 2005. 2005. I want to say 2004, 2005. And he had like, I've used this example before. I loathe watching players in the NBA, Russell Westbrook, who are like, it's recess. I have a basketball and there are 48 other kids out there and it is me against 48 others. I know 17 of them are on my team too, but they don't matter. They're effectively part of the 48 on the other side. It is Russ against the world. And like every time Lou Williams stepped onto the court, that is it. It was get the ball and chuck. Get the ball and chuck. Play no fucking defense. He had the most empty fucking stats I have ever seen. And again, reserve player. A lot of the times he's in there to, his meaningful minutes are few and far between through a lot of those opening, two of his first two seasons. Then he started to kind of catch on as a legitimate bench guy and spot start guy. But I just felt like every time positive things occurred for him stat wise, it was when games were well out of hand. It was when the Sixers were up by 20 or down by 20 with 3 minutes left and no one gave a shit anymore. It was like Lou was like, now's the time to shoot 49% from three. Like, this is the appropriate time right now. Well, go fuck yourself. You shot 22% for the rest of that year. I hated Lou Williams, and I hated that style of, I'm going to come off the bench cold, catch a basketball, and just shoot and never involve a teammate. So I hated him, and I hated him, I hated him. And then those last couple of years in Philadelphia, I saw the value to him, and I was like, man, I know I hate this guy, but we kind of need him. And then when we traded him, I got when he wasn't here any longer, he went to Atlanta, I got irrationally angry at it. So I hated him as if it was his choosing, like his decision 110%. And I was like, go fuck yourself, man. Where he became and turned around his career. Well, not turned around, but just continued to slowly elevate his career into one of the best, and did ultimately win a Sixth Man of the Year award. And last year I was fucking begging for him to be part of a deadline deal for the Sixers in order to acquire a shooter and a guy who still, I'm pretty sure, is the last guy not named Jimmy Butler who could create his own motherfucking shot from anywhere on the court. It has been that long since the 76ers have had one. And I'm convinced that he fucked up the organization and it's his goddamn fault for no actual reason, but it's his fucking fault that Lou Williams is the last person who could create their own shot for the 76ers, not named Jimmy Butler. So Lou Williams, I hate that your career has gone so well. So much, unless you come back to Philadelphia.
I love that was your pick, and I love that you ended with unless you come back to Philadelphia. Because, again, it sticks with the nature of this segment. It's, as Philadelphia sports fans, we're bitter when other people are successful. We don't feel good for people when they leave our city and do well. And Lou Williams is included in that because he has done nothing but flourish after he left. And he was a headache here. They basically should just name the Sixth Man of the Year award the Lou Williams Award at this point because he's just going to win it forever.
Manu. It should be called Mano's Award. But Lou's giving him a run.
Yeah. Lou Williams, I hope you end up back here in Philadelphia. But if you don't, I'll echo that. Fuck you.
Oh, you're a better man than me. Honestly, the first shot he misses, I'm going to be pissed off at it. If he ever were to come back. He could be like 62 years old and still playing. He'll miss a fucking free throw and be like, you're ass. You've always been ass. You catch the ball, you throw it up. Brick. Ass. Don't play like a defense.
Has he been in the NBA for 15 years?
Yeah, 2004, 2005. So like 14 years, I think. 15 years. Yeah. And like I said, it's been like this slow, steady, gradual, just he's better and better and better each year, or more valuable to his role and like more solid in what it is that his team or rotation kind of requires of him. He just seems to be like the ultimate professional. I also will say that there was a story that came out in like 2000, his last year with the Sixers, where he actually got held up at gunpoint by a guy who, and like apparently Lou Williams doubles as like a negotiator of sorts and therapist, because he talked this man into putting the gun down and then talked to him about whatever was going on and then bought him dinner, and they sat down and ate the meal together. And I'm not going to prepare to say that it was Morton's Steakhouse, And it certainly wasn't our friends from Just Food with Asian Rob over there, but it was a McDonald's burger. And honestly, if someone put a gun at my head, I'm not even giving you McDonald's, even if I talk you down out of it. The second that gun goes down, I want to punch you in the face, but I'm probably just going to run. Like, food is the last fucking thing on my mind. And Lou Williams, the kind-hearted man that he is, his last parting gift to Philadelphia was he was a better human than I. So fuck you, Lou. Fuck you.
How dare he?
How dare him? I'm not a very good person to begin with, honestly. So it's not as though those standards were super high to surpass, but Lou Williams is Lou Williams. I mentioned it before. Again, this episode is this and almost all of our episodes at this point are being sponsored by Just Food in Buckingham Green Shopping Center in Bucks County, PA, just above Peddler's Village, if you know where that is. Just Food. Visit my friend Asian Rob. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. Scott, when you are in for the wedding next week, I'm going to take you to lunch over there and have him feed you, because you have a far more extensive palate than what I ever remembered and recalled from you as a child, where we both lived off peanut butter crackers and didn't know the finer things in life. But Asian Rob and his shop and store over there is just excellent in terms of food choices and selection. So we'll have to go and grab lunch, and I'll introduce you to our sponsor over there. But do you have any parting thoughts here for TJ's One of Us?
No, I don't really have anything to leave us here. I have no Babe Ruth stats. I have no quips that I can say about living in California. It's
actually, this is the first time you didn't.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be a rare send-off where I just kind of say goodnight. And it was a miracle that Sunday Night Baseball did end during us talking here. So I will not be up until midnight watching Yankees Red Sox play for the 15th hour of time or whatever. So it's a good night. I'm gonna go enjoy Euphoria, and hopefully there aren't too many dicks.
Oh my God, I'm not gonna not watch that show. Honestly, I'm gonna totally not watch that. But we'll be back with several more segments, kind of the sort that you saw tonight. We'll mix in different things to reference some pop culture stuff, some media things, and kind of bring a different type of connection to the listeners and followers of this show and all of our shows. I will be putting out it's not an article, but almost an instruction pad on how you guys can be involved in some of these segments. So if you guys have different things that you want read or heard on the air, if you have different takes, I will explain in that article-esque type of thing all the different ways that you can reach out, and you can do so by visiting our website. Primarily it is www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. You can also email us. The link is within that website, but it is anypodcastteam@gmail.com. You can also find us on our Twitter. It is at anypodcast. You can find me, the host of TJ's One of Us, and 45 other segments. I am at Shane_Mead, and you can find Scott at SP Novick. Is that right?
Yep.
Good. I have no idea what your middle name is. SP Novick. Paul, Patrick, what is it?
Patrick. There you go.
Solid. All right. Well, there's only two P names I know. Pierre. That would have been pretty solid. Let's see how crazy.
Can you imagine our Irish moms naming me Pierre? That would be wild. But
I actually kind of dig it. I would definitely dig it. I'm sitting there with my set, man. Chelsea goes by Ray now. That means nothing to my listeners. But do you know that Chelsea goes by Ray?
I didn't know that. When did that happen?
It's been since college. And when I played baseball, I always went by Billy, but no one else.
Different, though.
No one else knew that. And my sister was like, wait, you hate your name. I'm going to call you Billy. So for the whole weekend, she was home this week. She's calling me Billy. Strange as hell. But I think Pierre or Jamal was my desired name as a child because of Jamal Anderson and the Dirty Bird. I remember coming home from a Pop Warner football game, watching a Monday night or a Sunday night football game that night, and then being like, I think I want to change my name to Jamal. Went to Pine Run Elementary School with a 5-year-old little kid, and I was like, my name is Jamal now. It's a miracle I didn't get – see, I am Caucasian. It's a miracle I didn't get beaten up. Anyway, this has been TJ's One of Us on a little bit of ramble here as we get tired here on the East Coast, or at least I do. Scott, I'll see you this week, which will be it'll be cool to catch up. So I will be back tomorrow with a In Cap We Trust segment full of nothing but positive thoughts on the Philadelphia Phillies. For Scott, I am Shane here at the Always Next Year podcast.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky souls still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.